My name is Jim Salisbury. I was a sergeant in the United States Army Military Police Corps during the first Gulf War era.
I'm Mildred McGregor, and I was a World War II nurse. I live here in Ann Arbor.
Frederick A. Balo, Fred Balo, the 101st Airborne Division Parachute Troops.
My name is Sal Barrientos Jr. I served on active duty in the United States Marine Corps.
My name is Fred Strack. I'm proud to have served in the submarine service during the Cold War.
The most important thing that the military taught me was that in the military there's no acceptable answer for not accomplishing the mission. And I know that sounds sort of like, you always accomplish the mission, and it sounds sort of just like hyperbole and talk, but that really is how it is.
I looked up the word veteran many times throughout my tour, because everyone keeps saying, well, you're a veteran, you have to be a veteran of war, you have to be a veteran from something, when you went overseas and actually fought and did things like that. And I was never actually in a war, per se. However, a veteran is someone who has experience in a certain or particular field and a specialty. And I feel that the work that I did and the experiences that I have, I'm a veteran of leadership.
In my family, it's kind of a military tradition. If you go back to the very beginning, one of our great-great-grandfathers actually served with George Washington during the Revolution.
Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, correct? And I can remember that, and I was just a young fella, and I remember going in the front room and actually getting my folks up. It was all this news is coming on. I had tears in my eyes. I had to go in the service. Now that's all there is to it.
Well, it was the thing to do at that time. Normally I was a private duty nurse here in the States, and that was interesting, all right, because I enjoyed nursing. But when the war was declared, it was the thing for everybody to do. All the men were drafted until the age of 45, and so it was sort of probably a patriotic thing to do.
I joined initially for college, to go to school, and I really felt that I needed to do something with my life. I wasn't really doing much. College wasn't working that well for me, and I didn't really have a sense of responsibility yet, but I knew I needed to.
The rewards were great. The technical experience as an engineer, seeing different countries around the world, different peoples, and the caliber of people I've been able to work with throughout my professional life in the military. It was just amazing, and it really did set a foundation for me.
The thing that impacted me the most is how much I learned about the world, and I just had some incredible opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise. When I first joined the Army and went to Germany, it was right in the height of the Cold War, and actually I had won some military competitions, and I went to East Berlin on the other side of the checkpoint Charlie, and we were escorted around by Russian soldiers.
So down at Toccoa, Georgia we went, and we trained. Now listen, we're talking tough stuff, buddy. 6 months while down there, you do nothing but train to kill, period.
We worked continually when there was a crisis, and there was a crisis all the time when we were there, that we just worked continually, 7 days a week. There was no Saturday or Sunday or hours off or anything.
When you think of the war in Iraq, you think of the president, you think of Congress and things like that from a very diplomatic and political standpoint. When you're in the field, and when you're in the fleet and you're a soldier, a Marine, airman, a sailor, you don't ever think of that part of it. And I think people often get that confused, that, okay, just because you're in the service, you totally agree with where you're at or what you're doing. And although you never go against orders, they're two different things.
So incredibly diverse, even more so than the rest of our culture. And we had guys who were just gung-ho, couldn't wait to go to the first war, didn't care what it was. And we had guys that didn't want to go to any war. We had people who, it's hard to believe, when you put on the uniform, you train with guns and bayonets and everything, but we had people who really didn't have any clue that they could possibly go to war.
I hope we have no more wars, and of course that's the reason that we didn't want to go to the war, because we thought we'd been in World War I, and that was the end of world wars. But it seems to be that, and of course today, this is not the war, this is more of a fighting with terrorists, isn't it? And that's too bad to get involved in a world kind of a catastrophe where you take the finest men of a generation, because they don't draft men that are not fit. So we lost in that era the whole generation of our finest men.
Turn this page, you know, no names are mentioned. See, he didn't know the men, he just had the picture.
And as Thomas Paine told us, an army of principles can penetrate where an army of soldiers cannot. And that's one of the legacies that George Washington and our founding fathers left us, is the concept of the citizen soldier, men and women who fight for democratic principles and civil liberties.
There's a lot of Michiganders in the military, and whenever you'd run into them, you know, it's just like a real tight-knit group, and I just love Michigan. I think it's the best place to raise a kid that I know of.